Hello, I am Oxnard Police Commander Rocky Marquez, and the topic of this presentation is Drone as a First Responder. On July 23, 2024, the Community Services Public Safety Housing and Development Committee authorized the Police Department to explore the development of a Drone as a First Responder, or DFR, plan for the City of Oxnard. Since 2019, the Police Department has flown unmanned aerial systems, also referred to with the terms of UAS and drones, in what is known as a drone response model. This means that the drones are stored and carried by designated police officer drone pilots. In this model, some officers have them in their patrol vehicles. When a situation develops, planned or otherwise, that is suited for the use of drones, they are brought out and operated. The Police Department UAS unit has 10 sworn officers who are trained as remote pilots. The UAS unit is supervised by a sergeant and managed by a police commander. All pilots must successfully obtain a Federal Aviation Administration Part 107 credential. This is not required, but rather a standard that we have established. The UAS unit has been busy. As of June 30, 2024, the Police Department has conducted 554 drone missions since the program's first flight in 2019. A look at the Police Department's drone usage in 2023 shows that its 115 drone deployments that year are broken down to the following flight types: 42 tactical assist, which are SWAT operations, 25 field operations support or area searches, 20 for crime scene documentation, 12 special event support, 9 area mapping, 7 for training. The pace at which the police department is using drones is accelerating, with 123 flights in 2024 as of June 30th. Drones can perform about a third of the same functions of the public safety helicopters, but at a fraction of the cost. Here are the 4 drone types that we are currently using: the DJI Matrice, the DJI Mavic Enterprise, the DJI M30, and the DJI Avata. The Avata is our smallest drone, slightly larger than a palm size. We use this model to navigate in confined spaces, such as indoors. This list shows the categories of application types for our drones. All of our drone flights must fit into an application category. The list that you see here is taken directly from the department's drone policy, section 610 from the Police Department Manual. Tactical assist, field operations support, and incident documentation are the most prevalent uses. Drones are used on most, if not all, SWAT operations. Our department policy manual, which has more information on these applications, is public-facing and can be found on our department's website. During the course of the year, the police department responds to a variety of significant incidents that require scene documentation or diagramming. These types of incidents include the immediate areas surrounding serious and fatal traffic collisions, as well as crime scenes. Using drones to document these scenes is significantly faster, safer, and more efficient than past practices. In previous years, PD staff would have to either request a helicopter and/or place staff on a fire department ladder truck. As technology improves with things such as diagramming software applications that are integrated into drones, the work product is becoming increasingly more accurate and time-saving. The photograph that you see in the upper left-hand corner is from a serious vehicle collision that occurred on Rose Avenue north of Camino del Sol. Fortunately, we have not had to use drones for disaster rescue and damage assessment, but should the need arise, drones are highly useful in this role. Drones are an excellent resource in searching for missing persons. This video is from Norfolk, Virginia, in which a drone locates a missing person. This image is an example of field operations support. In this case, a drone is being used in a pedestrian safety operation. The drone is placed in an overwatch position. Motorists who disregard their obligation to yield for crossing guards and pedestrians are spotted, and this information is relayed to nearby motor officers. The violation is also captured on video from an ideal position. This image, an example of field operations support, is from Oxnard PD's first drone-assisted arrest, which occurred on North Ventura Road in November of 2019. Oxnard Police Department officers responded regarding a report of a subject brandishing a firearm. Officers saw the suspect running into a nearby neighborhood and established a perimeter around the area. Officers, assisted by police canines Rocky and Capone, began a systematic search of the area. UAS officers deployed a small, unmanned aerial vehicle. The drone was equipped with a thermal camera to assist with locating the suspect, who was hiding in the rear yard of a residence on Kingswood Drive. The drone also carried a loudspeaker, and it was used to make announcements to the suspect for him to surrender and comply with officers. He was taken into custody without incident. Here's a great example of how the Oxnard Police Department uses its drones. In this example from December 2021, a man attacked his neighbor and stabbed him. The suspect fled from officers, who then searched the neighborhood for the suspect. The drone was deployed and quickly spotted him, hiding in the rear yard of a nearby home. He was soon taken into custody. In the past, a helicopter would have been used. Not only is the drone quieter, it is also deployed in a mere fraction of the cost. Drones have also been used to complement fireworks enforcement. The drone is able to quickly respond to the origin of fireworks. This significantly increases the effectiveness of fireworks enforcement within the city, not only locating the origin of the firework, but also identifying the offender. Our drone unit has also proved helpful to our partners at the Oxnard Fire Department. In this instance, drones were able to stream real-time aerial views to the Fire Incident Command of a large structure fire that occurred within our city. Thermal imagery can also be used to identify hotspots in a fire scene. Now that we've talked about some applications for drones in public safety, let's move on to drone as a first responder concept. The drone as a first responder model, which we will refer to in this presentation as DFR, is an innovative newer concept in policing. It takes drone applications to another level. The Oxnard Police Department is seeking to explore and potentially implement a DFR program. On July 23, 2024, the Community Services Public Safety Housing and Development Committee authorized the Police Department to explore the development of a drone as a first responder plan for the city of Oxnard. The Police Department plans to present and discuss this subject in a number of venues over the coming months, and plans to return with a presentation to the City Council near the end of the year. Other California cities with DFR programs include Chula Vista, which was first in the nation, Fremont, Elk Grove, Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, and Hawthorne. In DFR, a network of drones placed in pre-positioned automated nests are ready to respond to calls for service. A nest is essentially a weatherproof, climate-controlled box from which the drone takes off. When called upon, the nest opens and the drone flies out of it. The drone is used as a resource to respond to public safety-related calls for service when deemed that their response is appropriate. That is, their use meets a need or purpose that lends to improving officer and community safety, information sharing, service delivery, and efficiency. It is important to point out that in those cities with DFR programs, drones are consistently the first resource on scene, providing eyes on the location. In one city, the drone has been the first responder on scene 75% of the time. DFR drones often respond to calls for service in about 90 seconds. The drone has an onboard camera that streams video back to the department's operations center, which is usually located in the police department headquarters building. The drone can be used to autonomously respond to a call location, and the drone operator takes over when it arrives on scene. The drone operator, who is an FAA-certified officer trained in incident management, not only controls the drone remotely, but also communicates directly with the officers on the ground to give them information about what they are responding to. The system can also stream drone footage to the cell phones of the first responding officers, supervisors, and command staff so they can see exactly what the drone is seeing in real time. After completing its flight, the drone returns to the nest where the doors close and it begins to recharge to ready for its next flight. The drone nests are placed in secure areas, usually rooftops, with city property being preferable. The intent of the drone nest placement across the city is to provide as much coverage as possible. Obviously, more nest means greater area coverage. This slide illustrates the basic concept, showing a network of drone nests controlled by an officer at police headquarters. The 3 nests are spread across the city. The circles depict the operating radius of each nest. As you can see, the circles have some degree of overlap. Overlap is preferred as it shows that a drone could be deployed to an area from more than one nest site. This affords broader versatility and an alternate option if a drone from another nest is not available due to charging its battery or being assigned to another call for service. As we are all aware, one of the Oxnard City Council's strategic priorities is to maintain 911 response times. DFR increases first responder efficiency. It serves as a staffing force multiplier by being able to determine the need for additional first responder ground units. For example, if 2 units are sent to a call of a suspicious vehicle, the drone, which is often the first to arrive, can quickly determine if the vehicle is still there. If not, it can call off the ground units and they can be made available. With increased availability, the ground units are then available for other calls for service or to engage in proactive efforts. Having a DFR program in place, even if it's not operated on a 24/7 basis, would reduce call-outs of drone pilots, resulting in some reduction of overtime costs. To provide some perspective, drones were used 115 times in 2023, and as of the end of June of this year, they have been flown on 123 incidents. Many of these involved call-outs, in which an officer responded during hours outside of their regular shifts. Overall, the use of drones not only improves response times, but also increases safety. Drones are able to get to calls quickly, as they can fly directly to a location, not having to navigate through city streets and traffic. Since they are often the first public safety resource that arrives on scene, and are able to provide vital information to other responding resources prior to their arrival. This is a great increase in not only officer safety, but to community safety. Here's an example of how drones was used to improve both officer safety and community safety by serving as an information source and de-escalation tool. In this slide, you see video screen captures from a Chula Vista Police Department drone. In this 2019 call, a drone responded to a man with a gun call in front of a taco stand. The drone arrived on scene ahead of responding ground units. The drone operator quickly identified the subject on the call, who had been seen waving around what appeared to be a handgun. Officers were still en route to this call, which could be considered as a hazardous situation. Prior to officers arriving, the drone pilot watched the man actually open the pistol, then light his cigarette with it. This immediately de-escalated the situation and greatly reduced the risk of a lethal encounter between officers and the subject. This brings us to the Chula Vista Police Department, which is not only a success story with their use of drones as a first responder, but also the first police department in the nation to integrate drones into police operations. Chula Vista began their drone program in 2018, and a community foundation funded drones being operated from 2 launch sites. As time progressed, they demonstrated their value. A long list of success stories and gained support from city leadership. As time passed, Chula Vista added more drone nest sites and their use became interwoven into police operations. As you can see in this slide, drones have been a public safety force multiplier. Chula Vista was able to reduce patrol call demand by 23% with the use of DFR. Additionally, the average response time for DFR drones to deploy to the scene of a call was 92 seconds. This slide shows what a potential first phase of DFR deployment plan would look like, and what areas of the city it would be able to cover. In the DFR concept, a determined number of nests are placed across the city, in this case, 3 of them. As I mentioned, Chula Vista, the first DFR city in the nation, began with a phased approach in implementing nest sites and expanding them as the program demonstrated success. Their program began with 2 launch sites and eventually expanded to 5. We determined that 3 would be the best number to start with, since it would cover about 70% of the city's 26 square miles of land area. By having 3, we also believe that this would make a notable positive difference. What is important to point out here is that the conceptual deployment is driven by data. We believe that facts matter. What you see here is a heat map that aggregates calls for service and shows where the greater service demands exist. The warmer the color, the more calls for service are received. This shows where the relative higher call volume exists. Essentially, our greatest concentration of calls runs practically right across the city center in a north to south direction. Also, a configuration model takes into account the locations and availability of potential nest sites. An additional factor that must be considered are concerns where the nest sites are situated in relation to air traffic from our local Oxnard airport. For example, a nest site in the airport's final approach zone is likely not to be established. Deployment models are not based on race or socioeconomics or demographics of neighborhoods. They are also not based on political districts, nor are they based on feedback from neighborhoods that have organized to complain about aircraft traffic. We've also taken service population into account. This is a look at the Oxnard census tracts. The darker the shading, the more persons residing per square mile. The importance of this is that the proposed DFR deployment covers areas that have larger service populations. This essentially boils down to locations where there are more people. There are more service calls for public safety and more of a need. As this map shows, the proposed area includes the majority of census tracts that the most persons per square mile reside. A proposed DFR program would likely start off covering 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. We would establish hours of operation based upon factors including traditional call volume trends, noting peak hours, as well as when those call types that a drone would be suited for use tend to be more prevalent. Also, weather and time of year may be possibly considered. In terms of staffing a DFR program, 2 sworn officers would be assigned to serve as remote pilots. The DFR program would fall under the purview of the UAS unit, which has a sergeant providing supervision and a commander managing it. An assistant police chief and the police chief are also responsible for oversight of the program. Visual observers are also needed to literally watch the airspace when drones are being flown. We would need the equivalent of 70 hours of staff coverage to support this effort. This could be done in a variety of ways. For example, we could allocate from the department's existing professional support staff, either full-time or in rotations. Some agencies have contracted professional services to perform this required function. Regarding the visual observers, another option would be the implementation of a ground-based radar system to monitor the airspace. There is added startup cost to this option, but in the long term may end up being more cost-effective. In any case, it is very likely that the early months of an established DFR program would use visual observers. We recognize and understand that some members of the public, whether individuals or organizations, will more than likely have concerns about government and law enforcement's use of drones, as well as other forms of technology. Prior to our implementation of our drone program in 2019, we provided some public presentations and engaged in conversations. We want to listen to these concerns should they exist, as well as provide information that shows what safeguards and oversights exist to ensure that drones will not be used in ways that are outside of the law, infringe on our civil liberties, or to undermine the public's trust. As of 2022, law enforcement use of drones falls under the definition of military equipment under AB 481, which is codified in the government code. It is important to point out that because of this legislation, we are obligated to produce an annual report that provides details of our drone inventory, its costs, as well as any complaints or policy violations. Each year, we are obligated to hold a public meeting to discuss concerns, as well as to present the report to our City Council. In 2019, we received very few concerns about our drone program, and 5 years later, we have not received a single complaint about our use of drones. We have not had any policy violations concerning their use. A couple of things that we feel are important to share. We require video recording of our drone flights in their entirety, from takeoff to landing. There is no question about what the drone captured during its flight. We maintain those videos under prescribed retention schedules, which vary based on the nature of the videos. In DFR, we would adopt the practice of keeping the drone camera pointed forward from the time of takeoff until it is located to the call of service. A number of things are in place to provide safeguards to law enforcement drone operations. State and federal laws are a fundamental part of our safeguards. Officers must respect the laws of the land, the California and United States Constitution. We must respect the Fourth Amendment, which is in place to provide everyone with protections from unreasonable search and seizures. Case law and court decisions provide guidance and influence our practices. Department policy is fundamental, and we hold our officers and professional standards to its construct. Department policies and procedures are a critical way to ensure that our operations are acceptable. Having a complaint process, followed up with thorough and impartial administrative review, are also part of that. And maintaining high standards and expectations through training. We have adopted a gold standard. But what helps us ensure our officers and staff are adhering to the rules? Selection standards. We are very selective about those who serve on our UAS unit. Supervision, management, and leadership help ensure that we are abiding by the rules and meeting or exceeding standards. We conduct periodic and ongoing inspections and audits, and if we find ourselves out of policy, there is the importance of holding ourselves accountable, making correction, and learning from the experience. This accountability can range from admonishment to training a variety of disciplinary actions. One of the common concerns about drone operations involves the nature of flights, where they flew over, and what they saw or captured on video. Agencies have implemented transparency dashboards, such as this. These dashboards are public-facing and can be placed on a department's website. The one shown here depicts overarching statistics of the drone operations.
We maintain records of all flights in our flight logs. These logs capture essential information, such as when, where, and why the drone was flown. This is required by Oxnard Police Department policy. Section 610 of the Oxnard Police Department's policy manual comprises our unmanned aerial systems policy. In this 7-page policy, we prescribe the rules for our drone operations. What you see in this slide is a portion of the policy's thesis statement. The entire policy is available on our Oxnard Police Department website under the Transparency page. We have initiated conversations with community organizations to hear their concerns and answer any questions they have. We will continue conducting public presentations while identifying funding sources and serviceable DFR nest sites. We will return to Council in Q4 of 2024 with the intention, if authorized, to begin the implementation process in Q1 of 2025. This slide provides links to readings and information related to this presentation. That is the end of my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you for your time.